Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Warp World Tech Talk Part 2 of Crowd Control. I'm Jaku. Joined with me today is Ross Strabossi, also known as Chud Breeder, and Axel Hellstrom, also known as Cat Dev's Game.
Hey.
Hello. As always, we've got a little bit of an agenda. Disagree is telling us we have an echo. Echo. It's probably coming from me, because I'm the one with two windows. So that's always a fun time. I don't know if it's a bad echo. I think the echo depends on your interpretation of an echo. It could be a good echo if you like echoes. You know? What are your thoughts on that, Kat?
I think the echo is not.
Yeah, I don't think the echo is you.
Okay.
I
it's
don't
not
hear
me,
any
maybe.
Echoes. Yeah, I'm hearing
Maybe the viewers at home can give us more. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right. So yeah, all better. See, all echoes are good echoes. All right. As always, okay, yeah, let's just start over. Welcome everyone to this week's Warp World Tech Talk on Crowd Control. This is part 2. I am Matthew Jakubowski, also known as Jaku. Joined today with me is Ross Strabossi, also known as Chud Breeder. And also we have Axel Hellstrom, also known as Cat Dev Games. How are both of you doing today?
Pretty good.
All right. As always, we got a lot of things to talk about. This slide was not updated. We forgot to update this slide. Off to a great start because it still says history of crowd control, but you can just replace the history of crowd control with technical aspects of crowd control. We'll change that over when it gets to the YouTubes. But as always, we have introductions. Those will always be a thing on these tech talks. Again, I'm Matthew Jakubowski, known as Jaku. Tons of information, security background, co-founder of ThoughtCon, security conference that's been going on for over 10 years. I created a lot of the products that we use at Warp World, or have had my hands in the involvement in a lot of them in huge amounts of ways. And the fun fact for me this week is that I once lived in VR for 24 hours. And it didn't mess me up. There's no side effects. Axel?
That's amazing that there's no side effects of that. I'm Kat. I'm the original dev for Bit Races, and one of the devs for Link to the Past Randomizer, if you've heard of that. Fan of roguelikes, if that's not the biggest surprise. I been on Twitch for streaming on and off for 5 or 6 years now. And my fun fact is that my parents tried to teach me programming really young, like way before it would take. They were also both programmers.
Nice. And then we got Ross here, who I believe is still working on the technical aspects of things.
Okay, so hold on. If I talk, you guys can't talk. That's the problem, is you're coming through me. So no one talk while I introduce myself. I'm Ross. I've been with Warp World forever, since the start. I've worked on all sorts of stuff, and that's it. You don't need to do any more. It's really exciting. This is like the original 3. Actually, it's pretty cool. This is like the team that like first sat down and like put together the early parts of actual crowd control. So this is gonna be really fun. And my fun fact is that I played 3 different instruments throughout my high school band time. So I'll let you try to figure out what those instruments are. I'm gonna mute again and fix this problem, but you guys can continue talking.
All right. I think I know what the instruments are. He definitely played, a flute, a clarinet, and an oboe. Kat, any guesses?
Let's say electric guitar, musical triangle, and
throw the drums
trumpet.
In there. Oh, trumpet. All right, we'll see how wrong we are. All right. As always, what is a tech talk? Tech talk is a talk where we talk about the tech behind some of the products and services at Warp World. This one is actually the 2-parter of crowd control. Last week was a big dive into the history of crowd control, how it got started with the roots in bit races. It was with myself, Grand Pooh Bear, and Saturn, and it was a great timeline that even we ourselves were kind of amazed at once we were able to see it, kind of like that top-down view and like really looking out at it. But it was really fun. So definitely make sure you check out part 1 of the Tech Talk before you dive into part 2, just so you get the full idea and concept of crowd control and what this is. Again, during the Tech Talk, we talk about what the service is, our philosophies, the problems we solve with this product, how we feel we accomplish it, future ideas, things like that. And as always, a general Q&A at the end, so you can ask your questions, typically about the product or service, but even sometimes you will ask questions outside of that realm, and that's okay. We like questions, and if we don't like it, we just won't answer it because it's our channel. So, what is crowd control? It's literally the best Twitch extension anyone's ever created and used. That's it.
Wow.
Done. Done.
Nice.
It's more than an extension, though. I love that that's part of it because I did the extension part, so I'll definitely take that. But there's so much you're going to learn that there is way more than just the front end extension piece that makes this happen. There's like so much that brings crowd control together.
7,000 moving parts.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, and yeah, no, it's definitely a great extension. It's a great service. It's a good way for viewers to interact with the streamer's game live and have and just cause a fun time to happen. At its core, it creates unique experiences that you can't get anywhere else. And so we're gonna, again, because we talked about the history and everything, we don't have to go too deep into what crowd control is and all that stuff today. We get to go straight to the technology used. This is where the nerds really come out of the woodworks to critique us and be like, why don't you use this instead? And that's fine. We're ban them in chat. So we broke the crowd control up in a few different aspects. We got the crowd control website. It's done in Vue with Tailwind CSS. It's got some Cloudflare protection. There's an API. Basic level of that. Mr. Disagree is the developer on the website. This is the second version of the website. The first version of the website was literally built like within 3 or 4 days before launch because we're like, oh yeah, we need to make a menu, and it used a lot of the same code from the original Warp Worlds website. Disagree has done a great job of taking that old site and putting it in its own category of sites and just making its own thing. And so that's where you go to control a lot of your stuff. You can do pricing on there. You can do charity settings. You can do your coin settings if you have Warp World Pro. And it's just a good way to get guides and things for all the games there. The crowd control client, this has been a work in progress for quite some time. It's an ongoing development. And we actually do have a demo later today to show you on some sneak peeks. But it's an Electron front end that packs the C# clients and effect pack loader in there. So like at the core, it's really a C# library that Cat has developed. And just the Electron app is kind of a UI between it. It does the effect management library. It has the connector library, extra connectors and all that. And that's how all the communications between the games work, is between these C# binaries. Anything to add on this, either one of you two?
You would know a
Um,
lot more on the client than I would.
I
can say the interesting thing about the client is the client has a client inside of it, right? There's like
pretty
a
much.
client. Yeah, there's Inception. There's a Electron app that's really just like a GUI that sits over top of the C# actual client that does the meat of the work there. I think that's kind of interesting. I recently found that out as I have recently inherited some of the client. We started working on it more.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, the crowd control backend. This is like the big heavy lifting part of crowd control. Without this, all of this would be useless. But this is a C# service created by Cat. This does the main crowd control service. It has the extension and control API. This communicates back with the client. It can communicate with the games that have standalone functionality, so that don't require a client notification and logging. So any logs can get sent to this thing. We'll get more into the details of all these things, but this thing is kind of the beast. And at the beginning of crowd control, like this thing did everything. Over the last few years, or over the last year or two, we've started stripping some power away from it and creating microservices for it to make it more adaptable. And it all talks back to a MySQL database because it's something that all of our team knows, and it really doesn't have to get too complicated. And then we only got one little note about the crowd control extension here, but it's obviously the thing that viewers interact with the most. It's Vue.js2 with TypeScript. We have a nice little image of the original like design that Ross built for this. We didn't even have the name crowd control at the time. It was still called bit races in this.
Right.
So Ross, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
it was important when we first made it to like it was like a team process. We were making up so much of this when we started. We didn't know the name. We didn't know what it would look like. Honestly, we didn't know what extensions look like at all. This is like one of the early extensions on Twitch. Certainly didn't see a lot of like full overlay extensions. And at the time, did component extensions exist? They did, but they were at the bottom of the screen, not on the right-hand side.
It was weird.
There was something else going on.
I just remember it not working out for our needs.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, we wanted, we know we wanted the whole screen because we had no idea where we were going to go with this. We thought, maybe in the future we would be overlaying stuff over the games, or like we had no idea. So, it was really interesting, just the thought process behind the team. We didn't have that many people. It was what, like 5 people in our meetings at that time, and everyone was looking over these PDFs that we put together. And at the time it was like, sure, this looks good. Looking back on it now, it's like, I don't know how good this is, but it certainly does work. And it's been holding up for as long as it's been there. But over time, truth is we've just kept adding stuff to crowd control that wasn't in the original plan. And it's going to be a lot of fun to go back and rethink a lot of the tech in here. Honestly, even the 2 little points that we have written up there will change. We won't use Vue.js 2. We'll move to Vue 3, and we likely won't use TypeScript, actually, because if it's me writing it, I've moved out of my TypeScript phase and moved back to my JavaScript phase. So
it's just a phase, Mom.
It was just a phase. Just kind of roll through. Actually, with Google just released Lit, which is like their replacement for Lit HTML or Lit Element, which has been out for a while, and actually with the release of Lit, it actually looks like a serious option for using stuff now that they have reactive controllers and some really stuff. So moving forward, as far as the tech for the front end, there's lots of options. At the end of the day, it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So how complicated can it be?
Right. All right. So I mean, we've already got into the nerd stuff, but really, like, we got a lot of nerd stuff. We break this down even more. Again, we mentioned this briefly. Crowd control website on a second design. Again, this controls everything. Designed in Vue. This is Delvin for CSS. This is how you set everything. Prices, charity settings, free coins. This is the one and done place that you need to go for this sort of thing. Kept it central for the most part there, and why the extension or the desktop application does have some of this control for those users that might get lost. At the end of the day, anything you need to do can be found on the website. The FAQ answers pretty much all of the main questions that anyone ever has. No one ever reads it, but it is there. So that is
as
one
with
thing
all
about the website.
Things we make. As with all things, it's there, but no one ever reads.
Yeah, reading is hard. Crowd control server, Kat, you can definitely talk more on this than I. I know what it does because, I work with you a lot with the microservices, and I'm kind of the in-between when it comes to be the communication between the server and the client with you and Ross and the microservices. But if you want to talk more on the crowd control server, and I can talk, we have a whole slide for microservices, so I'll let you kind of handle this.
All right. Well, the big thing that the server is doing is sort of managing the, I guess you call it like the state of the current session, because that's the one thing. It needs to be kind of holding on to a lot of information at once. What game you're playing, who's bought what, and it needs to handle. This is the big thing. It needs to handle things like chargebacks and managing like who's paid for what and if that effect has really gone through. Because the thing that I've noticed, like when I was started, and I'm still noticed now, is that like there are a lot of like crowd interactive things, and some of them take bits, but none of them manage making sure the thing actually happens and making sure that the viewer is certainly getting their money's worth, or at least getting their money back. And it's the server that's kind of handling like the banking aspect there, of making sure that all happens.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's actually
that's
yeah.
that's one of the biggest things about our differences of extensions with crowd control
Mm.
versus anything else that we've seen. There are some outside of Twitch and that do their own sort of thing and their own system, but if we're comparing ourselves to other Twitch extensions, I don't know any of the other Twitch extensions that actually have their own banking system um, like
Yeah.
this. They all just use bits straight up, and mistakes happen. Game states get screwy, especially when you're already doing stuff to a game that it doesn't want you to do things to. Um, so there is definitely the chance of people spending bits and it not doing anything. And I I know this was a sticking point for all of us. We were all very much like it needs to be confirmed, and if it doesn't, they need to get refunded. And we're a little bit more
Yeah.
cautious in that, like, if we even have like a hint of it not working, like it gets a refund because, like, at the end of the day, no one's going to be too upset if you spent 1,000 bits or coins and you got refunded at the end of the day and it triggered still. Like maybe the streamer would be a little salty, but they're gonna be even more upset if like 10 people spent $10 each and you know,
Yeah,
uh,
and
it
you're
it
absolutely right. Like
they didn't get refunded.
it's a huge differentiator from like anything else out there. The idea that we can refund. It's also, the extension is just like a dummy interface for the server. Like Kat said, the state and everything like important lives there. And that combined with coins is what allows us to do like GDQ or Lollapalooza or like any of these other events where
Yeah.
if we had bound our product to Twitch bits, we, how would we do Lollapalooza? Is everyone going to go, you know, get bits? Like, what if they're not even on Twitch? Like, what do we do when they show up to this
Mhm.
event? Like, and we're connected to Twitch
Yeah.
only. The server and the way that it was architected from the start, and the fact that actually it was out of necessity. It needed its own banking system, and we kind of transitioned it forward. But I think over time we realized how much of a game changer that is for us and what we can do with it. And moving forward, I think we've all agreed like anything we make will, I think we could say now, like as we make more things that exist like this, coins will be the way in which you transact things. And going forward,
for
it's
sure.
going to stay like that because um, there's simply no way to refund it. And it's just, the questions come to us, right? Like when things go wrong, they don't go back to Twitch and they're like, oh, give us our bits back. It's not like that. It's like, Jaku, you specifically send me my money back. And it's like, well, it's not going to work out so well.
Yeah. I get emails. Saturn gets emails because we're the
Oh,
tier
if it's
ones on the
Saturn,
support
it's okay.
email
That's
chain.
fine. Yeah, Saturn can pay for it.
Well, what's really funny is like Saturn will get the ones I miss, but typically I'm like right on point with them. Anytime an email comes in, I'm like, oh hey, all right, let me refund this. I got like an extra alert on the support stuff. But at the end of the day, like this really enabled us to do the charity settings without the bits. Like we could have built some sort of middleman where it's like, all right, we're ripping out the bits part and we can build our own thing. But by having this from the start, we don't have to rip anything out, and it's versatile. It allows us to move from platform to platform. We're not locked into Twitch bits. It's why the channel points integration was so easy for us to do as well. All of this stuff was just like it was built on this banking system that crowd control had.
Yeah.
And at the time it was for crowd control, but like you said, like moving down the line, the coins will probably be something that's Warp World specific for our extensions and any of our services. Users will be able to just use those across those programs.
Yep, and it was all modeled after a gas pump. that is the inspiration from looking at my bank statement after buying gas and realizing what they must be doing with my money. They're like temporarily putting a hold on my money and then taking up to that amount. And then I'm like, oh, that's how you handle that. Okay. And then I just kind of brought that over to the server design.
Yeah. And like, there's definitely improvements we can do to ensure that the users know they got refunded, like a transaction history log in the extension or something, or a little toast that pops up like, hey, you were refunded for your kill player because it didn't happen. There's definitely things that we can do better to ensure users understand that. But we've broken the Twitch socket system before with like the messages we send now. So like we have to go back and like reinvent our own technology on, not reinvent our own technology, but use our own services to run that sort of thing so that it doesn't cause more conflicts. Because if we're also doing all that stuff, it just gets even harder and harder for Twitch to handle it. And I don't know if other extensions have this problem or what, but it's just an interesting thing. And so again, it wasn't something we were really expecting to have to solve in the first design of this. And so like over the last few years, we've learned a lot of what we want the extension to look like in the future and how it communicates, and that's going to make 2.0 for it so much better.
Sure. You even mentioned when we first started, like the server and the extension were it when we started. Like there were no microservices. There wasn't anything else. It was, Kat did the server, I did the extension, and Jaku knew a little about both, enough to like communicate in between. And then over time, it really became apparent, like that's not scalable. We can't just keep putting things into both these places. So we started pulling things out so that other people can do things. Since then, Jaku's written like 100 little things that make things happen, right? Like it's just because it's become extendable, he's able to create on top of what's there. But yeah, at the very start of things, this was it. Actually, Kat and I, we had to like make up the API. That I remember those conversations very early on. Like, what's the API going to be? Looking back on it now, probably could have done a better job of that. I think everything is a GET request. I don't know. We probably should.
We were very much in a hurry to get something out for October.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah, we had a deadline.
We had a real deadline.
We paused bit races during that time, and people were antsy to get back into bit races, and like we didn't want to keep them like waiting for months and months like for that. And there was just so much, and so we definitely learned a lot on that, and it's been good because we built it in such a way that made it versatile enough for us to build these microservices. And like I believe the next slide is microservices. No, it's the client first. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna go back to the client.
Power of slides.
Yeah, I'm gonna swap it up. So the Microsoft Server Architect really does allow us to do a lot more than what it used to be. Starting with the Bootstrap service, this Node.js service that caches the details of the channel, so that as soon as you click like on the extension, that endpoint's hit for that channel, and it tells you all the details that current channel needs to send to you in the extension, such as what are the free coin amounts, what are the endpoints it's using. We've done a lot of events now, and so like GDQ was on its own server for the race, so that it didn't affect any of our users, and so that we could watch that and ensure that no one's going to be messing with it in any other way. And so it hit this Bootstrap service, and this Bootstrap service says, okay, send all the stuff to the event API as opposed to the normal crowd control API. And no user knew, like it just worked. And that really allows us to shift where things are going, if things are going to get crazy on one stream or not. This also helps with the charity settings. If it's a charity setting, it knows, and it changes the tabs from like coins to donate, and it puts the charity information in there. So all of that's handled through the Bootstrap service, and it's such a small little thing, but it really has made it very powerful for us to do testing and just changes to the channel live, essentially.
Small code, but like huge in importance.
Yeah, it's like a good emergency thing too. If something gets overloaded, it's really easy to go in there and swap it and move stuff around. Because like I said, the extension really is a dummy to this, and that Bootstrap service pretty much tells the extension how to do, like where to get its brain for everything. So you could really swap all that out of there pretty easy. We had talked about this, and it is possible that in the future that Bootstrap service could go to, Twitch has like a streamer storage now per extension. We've talked about this a little bit, but again, we're hesitant to couple ourselves too heavily to Twitch. There's a lot of other options out there as far as like where this gets played and who does stuff with it. And there's a convenience of using the Twitch services, obviously, but then there's also a cost in that we're kind of stuck in an ecosystem. So
we could put on Twitch, but then we'd have to build it anyways for something outside of Twitch, like our own solution. So it's not too hard to, like, it's running now and it's doing a stand-up job. Sure, improvements could be made, but like right now it's not a bottleneck or anything. Same thing with the channel point service. This is something that watches for a channel session to start. As soon as a session is started and the OAuth tokens are correct and the users has channel points enabled, it will go onto the channel and create the rewards. Again, this is something that like it would have had to be built into Cat's C# server, but because it just gets a notification that this channel went live, it's able to go out and do its thing, keeping it simple. And another nice thing about this is, like, if somebody tries to redeem channel points and they don't work, they stay there until, like, either they get deleted or the service, like, has a watchdog service that, like, looks for stalled messages. Every now and then Twitch doesn't send us messages. We'll get into that with the transaction collector, but, like, every now and then there's just some things that get missed, and so we have watchdog services for that sort of stuff to watch for it. Charity service as well. This is how we get information from Tiltify based on the donations of the users to credit the coins. This allows us to give them a special endpoint that has authentication on it and isn't giving them direct access to our banking system without some sort of authentication. And this allows us to deposit coins when a donation is made. It's just so much easier than sending it over to Cat, because we have the right endpoints to give coins. We know those ourselves, but we don't want to give those to third parties, and we also don't want to rely on Cat to just have to build all these things into this big box. And then again, like, if we have the charity service and the bootstrap service, if it's on another server, it knows, because all these things communicate with each other. Whereas on the C# side, we'd have to have all these settings in that thing, and it's even more of a beast.
Right. And all the services you've mentioned so far are Node.js services, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're all Node services, single CPU scaled horizontally, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So that's what we do. So we don't distribute across multiple machines a ton yet. It's mainly just single machine scaling, but that's actually worked out pretty well. The only time we really have to be cautious with it is in our sockets. That's a huge thing to scale. But yeah, these services scale. Yeah. And I don't know how much have you had to, I don't know, the charity services or any of these others, have they had to scale or move around?
The first time we built it, I had it clustered on 4 CPUs for the charity service, just because we were launching it with St. Jude, and it was like, let's make sure that it's good. And so we'll probably actually end up doing this again for the St. Jude event, probably for the entire month of May. We're add a little bit more power to it, and it's super easy to do, and it's all stateless, so it doesn't. There's no sockets on it, and it just whatever gets to it gets to it. Yep. Effect pack loader, very much similar concept. When you go to load a game on crowd control, you get you send over some tokens, and we check your permissions to see if you can load this pack, and if so, we send you the S3 link for it. That expires very quickly. So, like, this way people aren't loading packs they're not supposed to. And this used to happen on the server. And I don't know the technical reasons why we switched over, but Cat's like, hey, I want to switch this over. I'm like, okay, I could build that. That's not a problem. So, but it's definitely made it easier for us to upload new packs without, I think, restarting the server. I think is what it was.
This way is way better. Not having to upload packs to sit in the server directory, because I don't want them on the same machine. I don't want them anywhere near them.
It's just easier for caching reasons too. Because
that's funny. A ton of this is like literally, what can we dismantle from Cat's original server?
Yeah. Some of it was not having to. I didn't want to send the packs over the main protocol as well, because it was just, here's the whole pack, like, packed in like base 64, and like that was not working out, getting packed into like a giant, like, just WebSocket message.
Transaction collector. This one is probably the first microservice we wrote. This is the best one. This one Ross actually built, and I appended a few things to it to do a few extra steps. But essentially, he goes out and he gets all the transactions for the crowd control extension from Twitch, and then I take a look at what transactions got paid out and which ones got stalled. And we run this every so often, and we help get the coins to the users that Twitch didn't send us a message on, or something happened in between. Network communication errors happen on both sides, and so, like, this thing will go through and validate that they finally happened or not. And maybe you purchase some coins and you didn't get them right away, but in a minute or two you will have gotten them, because it runs like every minute or so. And this has been working nonstop for like the last 2 years. with very minimal changes, and it's just been great.
Yeah.
Event action or service.
Yeah, the next three are kind of falling into that bucket of like administrative tools. Like these are tools that we built because we had to scale our stuff. Jaku probably gets messages probably every day, probably more, about like my coins didn't come through, or Saturn, like one of them are getting messages about this, and they need some way to vet like who's just trying to get free coins here, and what's real. And I think that's really where the transaction collector first came from, but now it's kind of just made its life as one of our kind of standard business. And then we have more admin tools, I think, and there's many more at the bottom here, so I don't think we're talking about all of them, but
no.
Yeah, the next couple are also pieces of that.
I think I've literally written 20 microservices, which seems like too many microservices to me at this point, but it's helped us a lot. Event action service, I don't want to get into details on that because it's a sneak peek of what's to come. Report service, though, is very much it gives us reports of like, hey, this user tried using crowd control and it had some errors. So instead of having them send us log files, we get those log files so that we can kind of troubleshoot, and we can look at those log files every so often to see like, hey, this is happening to a lot of users, let's fix it. Because at the end of the day, users don't always reach out. As much as we say users don't read, they also don't like to reach out. If something doesn't work, they just move on. Yeah, they also don't write. Exactly. So this allows us to get insight into what could be happening on these systems that we're not aware of. And there's always troubleshooting happening. We had an issue yesterday that me and Saturn were like stumped on, until I'm like, oh wait, do you have Spectrum internet? And the person's like, yeah, like that's the issue.
Spectrum internet, man.
It's they have why I have the soapbox. Spectrum internet, if you're listening, you're not. But there is something with their DDoS protection on their router that they give you, the router modem combo that they give you as a consumer, that for whatever reason does not like Cloudflare microservice or WebSockets, at least ours specifically, and it will connect and communication will happen for a minute or two, but then it will kill it. And we have not been able to find any reason why. We're not doing anything weird. Nothing else is affected. It's only Spectrum users, and like it doesn't happen often enough that like it's our first go-to anymore. When a user's like, "Hey, I'm having issues with this." It wasn't until like literally 5 hours of troubleshooting with this person, like, "Wait, you have Spectrum, don't you?" And like we have a little message on our site, like, "If you have Spectrum, let us know." But going back to the people don't read, it's just one of those issues that we forget about, and it's frustrating. And we're trying to solve it with as much information as we can get. But again, even our own report service log isn't giving us enough information, because it sounds like it's happening on their layers, and like to us, it's just a disconnected socket.
Clearly, Spectrum, the company, is trying to silence Warp World, the company.
That's what it is. Well, and the craziest thing is like our WebSocket for multi-queue, not affected. So it's a weird one.
That's weird.
But regardless, we have lots of microservices. Let's talk about the client.
Right.
Because the client is what the streamer sees the most. They almost never see the extension, even though we allow them to, and they have a way to interact with it. They see the website, they see the client. And so we mentioned this before, it's an Electron app that communicates with the C# binaries. They do all the heavy lifting, and they do the communications between the Electron app and the server through various means. And these C# apps are very much, Cat is in control of the client and the server. Like they do all the communication with those, and they're on the same like libraries and all sorts of stuff. So it's really, really good that Cat is the one in charge of both of these things. But the client, the Electron part, falls onto myself and Ross. I brought Ross on board about a month ago on this, and we've been adding features to it, and it's due for a big update. But it's a nice little thing that lets you choose what game you want to choose from or play. You can manage the pricing and all that sort of stuff. But without this, we wouldn't be able to have an easy way for users to start and stop games. The very original binary client that we had was definitely designed by a programmer.
Yeah, it was it was some WinForms UI that looked like medical software.
Yeah,
it
had both right click and left click functionality in the sys tray.
Ooh.
Which, yeah, that did not That was not easy to explain to users.
People were not happy about that.
All the clicks, though.
Yeah. It had middle click functionality.
Oh,
yeah.
All the clicks for real.
It had side button clicks. No, it didn't have those, but we could have added those. But it was
the
definitely
original
a
client
huge improvement.
Really just like an in-between, right? It didn't even have much of a UI,
was.
if I remember. It was really just about getting things through to Lua at the time, really. Right?
Yeah, it was very basic.
It was the WinForms skin on minimum functionality.
Yep. Now the client's a big powerhouse that has added functionality. Like now, if you see the Fall Guys effect packs and stuff with the overlay effects where like yogurt can fall onto your screen, that's handled by the Electron app. It's not even a pack feature. We actually we actually ended up doing a whole lot of testing on that whole overlay type system. Kat, you tried like many things with C#, and then I'm like, wait, Electron can do transparent browser windows. Let's do that.
And it so much better, and it was so much cleaner.
Yeah, it was so much better, so much easier, and it worked for our needs. And it wasn't like we tried so many different things of injecting into the DirectX of games and all sorts of crazy stuff.
That was GlitchCon,
some of that stuff worked too, but it was just not reliable.
It was prior to GlitchCon, but yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying, and some of that stuff worked pretty well, but just not as reliably and not as cleanly as just doing it straight in the Electron client.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. We kind of had it pretty well under control by GlitchCon. It was just like something that really we were able to just bring out for them really quick. Yeah, it's true. We were just able to find them a bunch of fun. Was it like skulls and bats and whatever else?
Yeah.
The boss.
Yep.
Boss.
Yeah.
I wish we had that boss video.
Oh yeah, that would be good. And then the client does do more nowadays with the new one that we're working on. So there's things to come from it. Because just like the microservices, it's a lot easier to add certain things to the Electron app than into the C# binaries. Not everything needs those things, especially because we can still communicate back to our endpoints and stuff.
And on the client, before you switch off, just the tech behind the client, it started in Clojure. It was converted to vanilla JavaScript. It's always been a React-based app, to my hatred.
Yep.
But it is, and it's fine, works fine. And I think that's the tech. Tailwind, React, and Electron, the main things, and then the actual like C# client that lives inside of it is spawned off and communicated over IPC.
Yep. And then this is the thing that everyone has seen before. This is Ross's whole thing. Like the one person that controls this is Ross. I might tell him to do some things to make it look ugly, and they have to. But at the end of the day, Ross handles this sort of stuff. So I'll let them talk about the extension.
Let me bring my face up. Jaku can mess with his camera. Yeah. So the crowd control extension, you guys saw a little picture of it like blown apart. It was designed in layers. It had this like 3D effect to it where things like slid back and forth. Again, ViewTube TypeScript at the time because I thought it was cool. I don't know how cool it is anymore, but yeah, we use the Twitch extension helper. That's a big part of any extension. That's what gives us all the information we need, gives us access to socket messages, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, it really is just like it really is kind of like a dumb terminal that sits on top of the client. The Bootstrap, the client itself, it gives all the information back to the extension. Simple REST APIs back and forth there to make all that work. I think that pretty much sums up for the actual extension itself. It's really not anything crazier than any other website. It's just a web page embedded there. Moving forward on the extension, we really hope to move to a lot of new tech on it. My goal right now, again, would be Vue 3, moving to a completely reactive data set in Vue 3. And getting the styling all over to Tailwind because it's all custom CSS in the extension right now. But and then we have like kind of a massive rethinking. I think we want to just sit down and rethink, how people are using it. How can we make this easier for people? And there'll be a bunch of UI overhaul to it as well. But What else did you write in here? Oh yeah, socket messages. Oh, so for the sockets for the extension, we use Twitch's extension-based pub sub communication system, and we broke that, of course, quickly.
Yes.
It was what, GDQ? I think we decimated that.
Yep.
Yeah, didn't work out so well. So we've been trying to think about, what can we do to alleviate that, and I don't think we have a set answer yet, but we do know we need a solution that for these really large events, instead of going to Twitch and trying to convince them to, turn up the nozzle so that we can pump more data through, we need a way to switch it over and handle it all ourselves.
Yeah, probably something the Bootstrap service will handle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something to go back to the Bootstrap service.
Yep. And like you said, there's been a lot of stuff that the extension has done. We've added things over the years with it, like some basic functionality here and there. Just earlier this month in April, we released a paint update. Essentially, we recoded the colors and added our new
bug
crowd control icon. Yeah, a few bug fixes here and there. Just minor stuff, because one of the big issues with extensions on Twitch too is they have to go through a review, and the review process is still something to be. It's not fun. It's lacking in certain aspects. If you are minifying your code, you have to then send the unminified code, which is fine, to them through a Google Doc. It's not like something you can do through their website. And then as soon as you submit, you have it's usually about a week or so that it will take them to review. But they require you to have a channel live while the extension is in review. And they don't necessarily give you the time that they're going to look into it. At least now, if they check your channel and it's not live, they usually email you and be like, if you can get it up in 30 minutes, we'll look at it then. But it's just I wish we could schedule a time, hey, Thursday at 2 p.m. I'm going to review it. So there's just a lot to be desired there on the review process. And so we try to minimize those sorts of things by putting as much stuff as we can in the Bootstrap, and just not doing many updates, and trying to get everything in one big update as opposed to multiple tiny ones. And that's the nice thing about crowd control is our extension works in such a way that the menus are all dynamically loaded from the crowd control server. So when we add a new game, we don't need to go and update the extension to do that. We've already hit the game limit that extensions can list, so we're good there. But if we add a new game tomorrow, it just works. Nobody has to install a new version. There's no review process. We're not at the mercy of Twitch to review it. And to give Twitch some shout outs, though, we have been in some binds when we were at the Tokyo Game Show.
That's true.
The channel. This was really crazy time. So myself and Saturn were in Tokyo, and we got to the Tokyo Game Show Convention Center at I want to say 8 p.m. Japanese time and JST, and we're finally getting access to the computer to set up crowd control for Bloodstained, and we get access to the Twitch channel, and it's partnered, but they don't have bit support. And there's 3 types of settings for extensions at this point. There was partnered / affiliate bits, and then there was hybrid, and then there was no bits. When we first built crowd control, there was only the bits option or no bits option. There was no middleman. And so our extension was still in the hybrid mode, so that affiliates and stuff couldn't or anyone that wasn't affiliate or partner couldn't even install it. And so we didn't need bits for this event. Luckily, we just again, going back to the whole hey, we don't actually need bits. We just need the free coin functionality to work. I ended up calling Ross, and I think it was I don't know, it was about 12 hours difference. So it was 11 o'clock that day for you. Or even 9 a.m. I think it was about 9 a.m. or something. I'm like, hey, I need you to go into the extension, build a new version called Bloodstained, rip out the bits component and submit it, and get some of our Twitch people on a call immediately to get this approved in 12 hours, because our event is going off in 12 hours.
Because
and it was I'm going. It was
in 12 hours.
Right. It was I'm going to sleep. Please have this done when I wake up. It's this message of shit, everything's on fire. I need you to do all this. Get Twitch to help us. Good night.
I was frantic because this was a big opportunity for us to get to show off crowd control at Tokyo Game Show. And like, if that was going to be like, we had a backup plan of like, using another channel, but like, we didn't want to have to do that or having them go to a website. But like, it was just like, if we can get on the page, that's the best case scenario. And Twitch came through. Like, they understood our need. They understood why we needed that. And they allowed it. And like, without Twitch's like, Twitch was really involved with us from the beginning on crowd control when we first pitched it to them. And so having that sort of relationship was very helpful. And we've had one or two other occasions where like we've had to ask them for some help like that, but it hasn't been that urgent. So, and we try not to abuse that at all, because like that was definitely something that we're like, holy crap, this could have been really bad.
They've definitely been there when we needed them. They've definitely been there when we needed it. And yeah, it's been an interesting relationship, like Jaku says. I don't know what the exact numbers, but it certainly does feel like we were one of the very early like bits extensions that ever existed. I don't know if we have any numbers about where that was, but we were definitely talking with quite a few people over there very early on. We attempted to get some features in there that we wanted, that we still want. I don't know if they'll ever happen, but someday maybe. But to be honest, it almost doesn't matter anymore, because I don't think we'd ever give up the coins. Like at this point, I don't think we'd ever give up coins at all. Even if they added all the features, it's been too powerful for us.
There's been a lot of changes over the years with Twitch, and like us giving them feedback, and sometimes they listen and we get it, sometimes we don't. We don't control them. We just give feedback based on what we think would be good. And like, I wouldn't say that we're like trying to be selfish in the things that we do. We usually have good reasons why it would work for us and others. We're not usually like, this needs to happen because crowd control needs it. It's like, hey, this would be great for all developers. So we've been open about that.
There's a lot at Twitch, let's be honest. A lot of layers, a lot of people who have to have a say in things. I think it's pretty hard to...
It's a lot of people.
I think it's hard to get things to change or add new things. I don't think it's as easy as it is, like here, Warp World. It's literally like if Jaku wakes up in the morning with an idea, we'll probably do it. Probably make it. At Twitch, I think there's at least 3 or 4 people that have to wake up with that.
There are days when Saturn will see me up at 7 a.m. and he will hate those days because he's like, what is he doing now? He's changing everything. Speaking of changing everything, though, we are going to go over to this demo.
Demo time.
Oh, exciting.
Let's see how this looks. So this is is it good? Is it too small? I don't know. Go full screen. I mean, I can.
You're good.
What I can do
You're
for
good.
y'all.
I
can make it a little bigger.
Here, I can go here. There you go.
There we go. There you go, chat. So this looks like a normal crowd control client for most part, except there are a few different changes. Obviously, you got this big green banner that says staging build, so you can ignore that. But we've changed a lot of the functionality of this, and without changing too much of the UI. One big difference is we've moved the file path to configure your ROMs straight to the list of games. We've also alphabetized the games, and so the other cool thing that we've done is you can type the games, and it updates them there. So that's been redefined. That's gonna make finding the game you want so much easier. The configuration page now only shows games that are configured for you, and not all the games, all 50 games, because this got overcluttered. But one big thing that I think people are really gonna like is games like Minecraft have what we call a one-click install. And this is a demo, so it's not going to work. Or no, it is. It will. And so basically, it goes over the details of like what it's doing, and prompts you for certain things. So like it's installing the client right now. So you guys don't see that because it's window capture. But this is going to make setup for a lot of PC games so much easier. So it's going to take a minute, and be sure to launch. And now the crowd control mod is installed. And in a second, it's going to just bring us back to be able to click start and all that stuff, but it gives you enough time to read things. All done. This window will close automatically, and boom. So now Minecraft is set up. So all you have to do is click start, and you're ready to go. So there's been a lot of work on effect packs over the last year or two, and not a lot of work on the usability of the client. And so we're really refining this and making this better. It's going to be just so much better for everyone to be able to see, what's going on. Anyone that has issues, normally you'd go through the game guide, but even if we give every single step, people miss things. It's normal for humans to miss things. We miss things all the time. So the one-click setup is really going to help. And if there's any errors, it will let you copy that error log to us, and we can help you figure it out. It detects for the game, so you can't even install them out if you don't have the game. So many quality of life, and this isn't. I wonder if I should show the new thing. Oh, I can't because it won't capture it. And yeah,
right.
there's one more big update in this that I'm not going to show, but I think we are going to be ready for this by the end of the month for release. So just stay tuned for even more updates to this thing. It's gonna be a really good time. I think people are gonna really like what we have. And now the fun time, question time.
Fun time.
Fun time. We should just call this fun time.
That's so much not fun time.
Right? Yeah, everything else wasn't fun. This is the fun part. All right. So we got quite a bit of questions. Let's do this. So first question comes from the third nerd, and I believe this was already answered in the chat by Disagree. But how can I change the free coin amounts as a Patreon member? So first, let me tell everyone here, you can change the free coins amount for your subs and just the free coins by pledging to our Patreon. It's $4.99, and it gives you access to all of our services. It gives you Warp World Pro on Warp World, gives it to you on Crowd Control, it gives it to you on Turnip Exchange, and soon OneUpCoin. So that's a lot of value for that. We have a streamer package and a viewer package, and we have some other packages there. But this really helps keep the lights on. And for those that are not affiliated and or partnered, this is a good way to use Crowd Control because it gives you the ability to adjust those free coins. And because you are able to adjust those free points or the effect prices, you're able to set those really low and still have free coins go a long way. And so, yeah, the number one mistake people do on Patreon is they haven't linked their Twitch to their Patreon before pledging. And so they pledge afterwards. And if you pledge afterwards, it can take about an hour to sync. And then you just have to log out of Crowd Control and log back in on the website. So fairly simple, but it's missed. It is on the FAQ. So all of our websites, if you do like crowdcontrol.live/FAQ, warp.world/FAQ, oneupcoin.com/FAQ, and there are links to them. It gives you all the questions that people tend to ask with answers. So, all right. Next up question is Cheat117. Is this architecture all containerized, or are you on Swarm or K8s or some other orchestrator? So this is a work in progress. Right now, we have GitHub deploys with actions and things for our services and microservices, but none of it is like completely automated. We're actually working with Grim, who is a team member of ours, to help containerize and do some sort of Dockerize or container system. We haven't completely decided on what yet, but we are planning on moving towards that. At the start of Warp World and everything, we never knew we were going to grow to where we were. And like most of us were developers first, less sysops, and so it's and even my sysops days were literally old school servers running your own Linux server for everything. So we're a bit behind on that, but we are moving towards that system. And so at least with the GitHub actions and stuff, we've moved to a little bit better system than it was before.
Yeah, automated deploys have been helpful.
In another 2-3 years, we'll be there.
Yeah, the downside with the Kubernetes or swarms or anything, it really we do a lot of like real-time communication, a lot of like WebSocket communication, and spreading that out across multiple servers is not an easy problem to solve in our own architecture. The best that we found so far has been AWS's, I don't know what you call it, I guess, serverless WebSockets that they offer. And that's actually worked out pretty well, but it can get pricey. So, it is what it is. Yeah. But it's tough because we do so much real-time communication that trying to spread that across, we have to kind of invent our own systems or come up with a good way to manage what everybody's connected to.
Yep. All right. Jeffin, how do the microservices communicate between each other? How do they authenticate this communication? So they all have their own keys that they can use to communicate. So the microservices all kind of communicate through keys. Right now, it's a lot of endpoints like Git and posts with a move towards WebSockets. We're working on a big Warp World events pipeline that we are calling Warp Pipe that is going to allow communication between our microservices and servers and even potentially third parties with authentication on those. And so that's how it is now. All the microservices that are running on themselves are also only available to local host. So that does help with a little bit of security there. But at the end of the day, it does have authentication built in. I have a security background. It's something that like I'm very much pushing on all the others here, along with Grim. He helps out with that as well. So we think about security a bit more than normal. And the new stuff we're working on is really exciting to share in security sides of things.
Yeah, if we try to make something here, like it will be
paranoid.
Yes, definitely. And I feel like as soon as we make something, like some of the team tries to hack it, like someone's gonna tell us that they were able to do something bad to it. It's like we have Jaku and some others on the team that'll go from like a technical side, and then we have like Pooh and a couple others who will come from like a streamer side and just see if they can just break it, like just by being a user. And then we have people that try to break it by like technical means. So yeah. And as far as this goes, yeah, Jaku is saying we definitely have some plans for how this will go in the future. Another thing we've talked about is possibly moving all of this into like its own VPC so that the microservices talk locally and don't even have the ability to be spoken to or talk over the public internet. But there are downsides to that also. Again, we tend to move pretty quick and we tend to keep things pretty fast and loose, I hate to say, but it also allows us to like really, 2 days before something big, Jaku can get in and make something, or we can all come in and make something that is stable enough to be run on a big event very quickly. And we just want to make sure our infrastructure doesn't prevent us from innovating at the speed we want to do. We're getting bigger, but we're not so big that we don't want to just over-engineer ourselves into a pit where we can't still be exciting and new and make fun stuff.
A lot of the best features that we've created has become because of the way our architecture currently is. And so we could potentially lose that as we add more security and more layers to running these processes. The race that we did with Ludwig on January 2nd, where any effects that happened to him also affected the other two players. The way we were able to do that was like because I was able to get into the Nginx calls and append certain things for his channel specifically. And like, that's great that we were able to build that in like 24 hours. But at the end of the day, it's not great for everything. So there's trade-offs to that, and we're hoping to find a good balance. All right. Cheat asks, I'm aware of the SDK, but is there any plans to make it so that streamers can map a keyboard action to unsupported PC games through a keyboard shim used in games like Fall Guys? I'd love to have chat take more control in Tarkov. This really does kind of come down to the refunding. At the current time, crowd control doesn't have a way for streamers to refund effects that don't happen. We also don't want you to have to do that. The problem with having some sort of key binding feature in crowd control is we know we pressed the key, but we don't know if you were focused in the game or if the menu was open in the right spot for these generic games. Luckily, with Fall Guys, we're able to read the log files of that game. So we're not doing anything to the binaries or anything. They have very verbose logging, so we know what state the game's in, so we know when a round is started and whatnot. And that's how we're able to do the effects that we do with the validation that we have. But a game like Tarkov, or a game where, let's just, horse fight, for instance. If you're trying to play horse fight and we've never used that game, and you're like, oh yeah, just press the spacebar to make me jump. We don't know if you're in the title screen or actually in the game, So there's definitely stuff where we want to do that, but we also want to make sure that we have this ability so that streamers can refund if they need to, and that there is some sort of validation, because like that's why crowd control really works. Is if the streamer sets it up, they don't have to worry about all those other things while streaming. Shout outs to Horsefight.
Somehow knew you'd work it in here.
Yep. You owe me $50. Razor 1. What is the reason to use the C# binaries to talk with the server rather than the Electron app? Just curious why you're using C# binaries as an administrator. Yeah. We are doing that because Cat is in control of the server and the client, and it's the same protocols, it's the same libraries and stuff. And Cat can definitely speak more along the lines of why that's easier for them.
Oh,
But
yeah, part of that was just when we started, the server communication is just written as a .NET DLL. And so rather than having to port all of that, all the protocol, all the everything over to that, and plus the effect pack loader, which already uses C# binaries, it was easier to just make that whole piece just all C# so that it can load these C# DLLs. And rather than having to recode the entire protocol, I can just grab that DLL off of the server and say, okay, this is the same protocol. Now be the client for that. So it is mostly an issue of one, compatibility with like the effect packs, which themselves are C# DLLs, and just expedience in getting it done.
yeah. One other benefit is because these are separate binaries from the Electron app, there's a client folder for Electron that these are loaded from. And so when Cat has new clients files for me to test, I'm able to drop these into the client folder and connect to the staging server and instantly start testing, as opposed to having to like rebuild the Electron app with them every time or anything like that. So that's one nice thing. The other side of it is we're able to take these C# binaries, and for certain games, we're able to build its own standalone client. So there are some games that have crowd control built in without this necessary desktop client, and using those libraries has made that really easy and whatnot. So it's actually been more of a benefit than anything.
Yeah, I imagine if we tried to write all this in JavaScript, we would have quite a heck of a time getting it back into something like Unreal, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it'd be like a whole thing.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Fuzz Whizzle likes to ask, do you work with any other streaming platforms or just Twitch? So we do only work with Twitch with the extension because crowd control is a Twitch extension by heart, and only Twitch has the functionality to add these sorts of things. Mixer at the time had similar functionality, and we actually had a beta, like a proof of concept more so than a beta of
Yeah.
crowd control for Mixer. But it was literally near the end of Mixer's time, and so like we didn't spend too much time on it, luckily. But it definitely had the icons and stuff, and it was nice.
Yeah.
In December, we worked with St. Jude and MatPat, and we were able to kind of hook crowd control into a Tiltify functionality,
Oh, yeah,
and
that
so
was
that worked on
YouTube.
YouTube. But yeah, we'd love to come to Facebook and or YouTube, but none of those platforms have a
Interactive layer.
an interactive layer like this. And why we could just link you to like an external site that does that adds a lot of friction to users, and why it would be something to do. I don't think we're at that stage where we want to bring out other platforms right now. Why we're still working on building out all this stuff. I think knowing that we want that goal down the line when we rebuild this extension, we're gonna have that in mind. And like Ross has been saying, like there's certain things that we could tie to Twitch, and like we do have their WebSocket server tied to Twitch right now. So we'd have to build that back out into something that's not Twitch dependent. But I think that's all going to happen. It's just time and consumption of our resources. And then we are all Twitch streamers. Like none of us stream on YouTube. None of us stream on Facebook. I streamed on Mixer just to understand how Mixer worked a little bit more, and that was really how I was able to do the other stuff. But when I've streamed on Twitch or on YouTube for testing, like I don't like it. Their APIs suck, and they just need to get better
Oh,
at that stuff.
Took us what, like 2 years to even be able to use the API? It was like a giant battle you went in just to get access to it.
Yeah, they require so many hoops for you to jump through. So I don't even want to know what it would look like on this. But yeah, I mean we
At
want
the
to
end of the
support
day,
more
like
platforms for sure.
half the company are like Twitch partners anyway.
Well,
So it's
yeah.
like we're pretty like invested in it a bit.
Yeah,
Yep.
but the other thing is like YouTube doesn't have a good way to monetize streamers either. Like how do we pay
No
them
bits.
for there's no bits. So what do we do?
They,
we have to
yeah,
have
they
Stripe
got
or
their own
something.
types of. No, they got their own types of bits now.
Oh, do they?
Super
Oh, do
chat.
they?
Yeah,
Interesting.
but it's not exactly like bits.
Okay. Interesting.
But there's still no interactive layer for us.
Oh, well, I can imagine
so.
right now Disagree is sitting there super happy thinking about the idea that all of the menus now are going to have two prices, one for YouTube and one for Twitch.
Well, no, that's the great point, because we're able
Oh,
to
that's
Beauty
true.
convert to our
multi-menu
We
system.
could convert to coins. Never mind, man. It's all
yeah,
good.
coin, yeah.
We're good.
Yep.
Standardize on coins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nintendo bucks.
Exactly. No, I don't know about that,
On
but
the-
yeah. All right.
The gold
Bryce
coin standard.
asks, are there any analytics collected for game packs, things like most popular effects, or for the dev side, which effects commonly fail and are refunded? Yes, we actually have a lot of analytics on this sort of stuff, and it's actually almost a problem in a way. We have a lot of data, and we want to look at it, and we have some people looking at it right now for us. But there's a lot out there. We have some great ideas on what we can do with that data to help the streamer, help the viewers. I can say right now, like Mario 64 and Minecraft are like the two top games. Most popular effects are something that we definitely want to look at. Something that we're planning on doing this year is looking at the effects that have never been purchased, or like have like one or like a low number of purchases. Because if no one's really buying them, we should just remove them. One, for debugging purposes, but two, there is such a thing as like effect overload. If a game has so many effects and like some of them are never used, we can remove them so that it's a little less of a hard decision to make for those viewers.
Yeah. At least turn them off by default. Someone has to go back in and flip them on purposefully or something.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like we give the ability for the viewer or the streamer to enable and disable any effect. They can change the price. They can't change the duration of the effect. There are a few things that we think are very important that stay static. We don't always get the timings right on things, but we do look at streams that are using it, and we look at how it's used in the real world afterwards, and we do tweak things. We've made multiple changes to existing effect packs. Every now and then we scratch an itch to add more effects to an existing effect pack, and that's something that I want to also do in the future, is like go back to some of the classic games that we have and add some new effects to them, so that there's a fresh look at the game again from all of our perspectives, because we've also learned quite a bit from building an effect pack for Link to the Past to building an effect pack for I don't know what's the game that's not Pokemon, I guess. Exactly. So there's just a lot, and so there's a lot in the effect packs. And the other thing, just to tease this, I guess, is like there's effect packs. Like every effect is like there's 3 states of an effect, or I guess not state, but like some effects are good, some effects are bad, and some effects are neutral. So like looking at that perspective and seeing like what effects that are bad for the streamer, like are those more common than good, and like giving that information to the streamer and the viewers is something we're really hoping to be able to do.
We don't display it, we don't really have it, but we have it marked which effects are good and which are evil and which are neither.
Yeah, Cat's like a little crowd control Santa Claus. He knows all of you. He knows if you've been bad or good. Be good, for goodness sake. This is definitely something we've talked about, in the redesign of 2.0, is like some users don't want any of this complexity. They don't care to set their prices. They don't care about anything. They just want to play the dang game. Other users, they want like down to the effect control. They want to change everything all the time. And finding a balance in there where it's not overwhelming to the people in Group A, but it's still interesting to the people in Group B is what we think is one of our toughest problems, and actually like our top problem. Like making this as easy as possible for everybody to go in and have fun and not feel overwhelmed is I think what's really important. As fun as all this tech stuff is to get into, that's what we're doing at the end of the day, is providing a service for streamers that should be easy for everybody. That's what we really want to do.
Yeah, and like it's been mentioned, like you can change pricing, and on some events we actually do changing of like not pricing, but instead of pricing we do durations and cooldowns and stuff like that. So users are able to are able to change the amount of time that an effect will, like the price will change based on how often it's purchased. And that's there on the server, but it's how do we present that in a UI that is easy for a user to understand, a streamer to understand, and isn't overwhelming? Because again, just like at the effect overload, having too many options on the website is a huge issue for us to try and solve. And like, there's no easy answer to it. Just putting a box there, yeah, some users might like it and go and take the time to learn it, but so many users might just be like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, close.
This is too much.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Like,
then I feel like
don't
at
know
some
they don't
point
have to.
you got to take like the Apple mentality where it's just like you make a decision and you go with that decision, and we try to make it as easy as we can for as many as possible. But I don't know. That's tough, especially for probably the three of us on this call, because we're much more into the details of things. So it's like, yeah, sure, give them 6 pages worth of forms. What do we care? You know, as soon as we hand that over to the designers, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? We cannot have an infinite scrolling forms. Like, why does every Pokemon have 100 different prices? Like, this is insane. And that's no joke. Actually, they can have 100 different prices. So
yeah,
we
should just. I mean, we should just make them do the Konami code, and it unlocks the
perfect.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Whoever's on this, was that?
Yeah, put the Konami code for the advanced interface.
I like it. Yeah, so the however many people are on this stream, they now know. So now we have to put it in the website, so something happens. Maybe we'll just redirect them over to Rickroll.
Yeah, there you go. Disagree can get that done in a night. Yeah, so there's a lot of thoughts that go into crowd control. There's a lot of technical things that you might not know. Again, I want to really shout out the charity support. So to date, we support about 11 charities, with even more being added like every week. We're working with Tiltify on that. I believe Moni is doing something. I don't know if I'm leaking this again. I don't know if I'm pulling a Grand Pooh Bear. But I do know that she is going to be talking to a big amount of people with Tiltify about this sort of thing. And so like it's something that we're passionate about. We've always been passionate about charities. And crowd control is the only extension that has this sort of interactivity that also has charity support. And it's because of the coin system and not because we're using bits. And like working with Tiltify has been great, but like I said, we're adding more charities every week. And you know, it's a big thing for streamers working with charities, and so it's a big thing for us because we love doing it, and it's just so much fun. But at the end of the day, you know, there's so many things that go into crowd control, so many details, so many thoughts that like you might, as a streamer, you might think, oh, this is stupid. I can't believe they did it like this. I will confirm that there was no less than 3 meetings about the decision on that. And there was lots of heated discussions about that option and why it was the way it was. And maybe you don't agree that it was the best one, but when we think of it as a whole for all users and ourselves and everyone involved, it usually, to us, it's the best decision. And we're welcome to be wrong. We love to have discussions with users, and like we love getting feedback from our users either through our forums, email, or Discord. You can find all those things on crowdcontrol.live. But at the end of the day, like we will change things if like a large amount of people agree that like it's wrong. And so we want to be better. And so, you know, one of the things that I had to do in the early days of Warp World, like 2016, was literally go to streams and just sit there and watch. And I still do that on crowd control. And every now and then it's just perfect timing. Somebody will say something about crowd control and be like, I wish it did it like this. And then like I get to chime in and be like, well, actually, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you were there. Oops. And it's like, don't be oops. Like, this is great. I want to have a discussion, but they would have never reached out. So please reach out. Please share your thoughts and concerns and ideas with us, and we will try to be better.
Definitely. That's certainly one of the benefits of having a Jaku is that he can do that. Like I do not have that kind of attention span. I'll just go off and just keep making stuff. I never go and like watch people use the stuff that I make. But it's
I have
so
that
helpful.
Same problem.
Oh yeah. Just not
I'm
good
in 5
at
chats right now.
Yeah, he's in there right now. He's troubleshooting 5 people's crowd control. He's also probably role playing something. He's currently.
Oh yeah, he's fixing 5 people's tech problems and playing No Pixel at the same time.
Right at the same time. Yeah, different level, but it's good. I was just reading like an article that like it divided techies into like 2 things. You're like pioneers or farmers. I should send you guys the article. It was really interesting. Like pioneers are like love to make new things all the time, like on the bleeding edge, and farmers are like the folks that like live with like freaking old school whatever. They don't care. They just keep grinding on it and they make things like super solid. I find myself in the pioneer for sure. Like I jump to new shiny things way too often, and I think Jaku definitely is in more of like a somehow kind of sits in the middle. Like he's definitely willing to like roll with me out west when I'm going off on something crazy, but also like he'll grind out a project. Like Turnip Exchange was a bit of a grind at sometimes. Like we released it and it was out, and then there were certainly times where Jaku was like, yo, we got to add these things, and he would like drag me back in, but it was for the best. Like we got it done.
It was.
And it's important to have that. And so what I'm saying is, in the long run, we need to find more farmers because, yeah, it's tough. You can't have all pioneers. You never make anything.
Yeah. We did get a new question from Sheet 117. And it's, Jaku, do you actually sleep? And yeah, I sleep. I got my COVID shot yesterday, my second shot. So yay. And my head has been kind of killing me.
So you'll sleep tonight.
Also yay. So I'm gonna sleep like forever, but I do have a project I need to build for tomorrow. So it's gonna be an interesting night. It's gonna be an interesting night.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, you're doing a lot better than I did. I was down for half the day at least yesterday with my second shot.
Yeah, I'm surprised I got through this. I remember telling you guys yesterday. I'm like, hey, if I can't make it, Saturn or X Water can fill in for me.
Yeah, we're gonna have him put on the Jaku mask and just stick in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you gotta have X Water with a strap on like ginger beard. Like absolutely yes. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we've gotten really good at making Jaku masks, so just so you guys know, that might not be Jaku. Just gonna put it out there right now. Might not be.
It's kind of creepy. But yeah, no, thank you everyone for joining this Tech Talk. Again, this is part 2 of the Tech Talk. Part 1 was all about the history of crowd control, where it started with bit races, with Cat's original idea, and just like how it's come to be now. And like we showed you a little bit sneak peek of the new client. There's a new website coming. There's so much in the works. And there's even more games. Like we've been a little slow with some games this year, but we got some bangers coming out that you all are going to probably be excited about.
Oh yeah.
And
when was BitRace? When was the BitRace purchase? What year?
2017.
2018.
So Kat, prior to 2018, thinking ahead this far, did you think this is what would become of your child?
I have no idea. I was kind of hoping that, but not expecting it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Kind of hoping
so soon.
Yeah, probably would have expecting it to take a heck of a lot longer.
Yeah. Well, I think that really just I think we said this on the last part, on the first part 1, but when we saw what Bit Races was and what we were talking about doing, it was just like, this is already like so much work. We don't have to redo it, and we vibe well with this person, and that's one of the most important things, is ensuring that both sides
that matters a lot.
Like, because like we didn't want to come in and take your idea and then just kick you out. We wanted you to be part of it, and we didn't want you to feel like we were just going to do that. Because like, I'm sure that was a concern too. Like you're like, I know Pooh Bear, and I've never heard this Jaku guy before, but like, how do I know they're cool? And like, there was quite a few phone calls we had, and we wanted to make sure everybody was like happy with that. So
we got through it.
we got through it.
Worked.
And now you live in the same state. We're all within like an hour of each other right now, and but we had to do it remote
together. Yeah.
Yeah, we did it remote, even though we're all within like a 45-minute radius.
All right, it's a sign of the times. We don't need to move anymore. This is the future.
Yay.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. From my perspective, being slightly on the outside, I think it's still crazy. Jaku had mentioned to me like there's this thing called Bit Races. It like lets you mess with games, and I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And then to see it like over these few years just suddenly turn into such like an interesting, and how much it's used and how much money it's made for charity is still like insane. Like the amount of good that it's done is just crazy. And for me, I still am kind of just like blown away. In like what, 3-4 years that's happened?
Not yet. I mean, Crowd Control will be 3 years old in October.
It's crazy.
So
yeah, and I mean, you're
what's
talking.
really
2.5 years old.
surprising is how much, like what you said, how much is raised for charity.
Yeah.
That I was not expecting. Like, just the total amount of charity money raised is ridiculous.
And it's only going to be more this year.
Yeah, it's only going to be
There's
way
a
more
big-
this year.
It's
Big
even
stuff.
easier. There's more charities, more are being added. So yeah, we're very happy to be able to use our software
More
for
this
good like
year.
this. Yeah.
Cool.
It's good times. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. Next week is not a tech talk. Normally it would be, but because we did one this week and last week, we're not doing one next week. In fact, next week is actually our St. Jude streamathon, 24-hour stream,
Heck
starting with
yeah.
Grand Pooh Bear, ending with Grand Pooh Bear. I get to tell them what to do every now and then. But no, we're working with St. Jude. We got quite the lineup, and it's going to be crowd control. It's going to be like what's the thing that you pass on a race?
Baton?
A relay.
Baton. It's gonna be like a baton.
Yeah,
It's relay
pass
baton
relay.
race. Like streamer, it's gonna start with Grand Pooh Bear, and they're gonna host into the next person. All of your coins for the charity on that day will move from streamer to streamer. That's one of the big aspects of the crowd control
through the channels.
charity support. This decision was like me and Kat. I think we had this decision, and we were talking about it. We're like, wait, this is a great idea. Like link it to the event, not to the channel. Again,
Crazy.
something that only we can do right now.
Power of coins.
But if
Power
you
of coins,
spend
yeah.
$100 on Grand Pooh Bear's channel on the first stream, and then Spike Vegeta's doing a stream later that day, those coins will still be available to you during that time. And it's all for St. Jude, it's all for charity, it's all for a good time. Check it out next week. I believe it starts at 2 p.m. Pacific. Check Warp World and Twitter.
Check it. I thought it was
Warp World
one.
Yeah, and twitter.com.
It's early
/crowd
afternoon. It's early.
It's early afternoon on Friday. Early afternoon. Just check it out. Moni will be tweeting about it. She's going to yell at me that I didn't have the exact dates, and that's okay. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today, and hope to see you at the event next week. And we will talk about the next call or the next tech talk on the podcast next week. We will figure out what we're doing.
Secrets.
It's going to be a mystery. We finally wrapped up all of our services for now.
For now.
All right.
For now.
Secrets.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.